topic for tonight is spirituality and pathology. So, as I explained a little before, um, I am not a doctor, but I'm interested in Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is it's the Vedic science of health. So just like we have yoga, which has become very popular, everybody knows yoga. Yoga has taken over the whole world. You can practice yoga everywhere and everywhere. How much of it is yoga? There's all kinds of different yogas, and it has sort of taken on a life of its own. I've seen you can do hot yoga, you can do goat yoga. There's all kinds of yoga. So how much of it is staying true to the roots? It's definitely developed, but we all know the basic practices of yoga. It's a science of physical postures, and then ultimately breathing work as well. But the real goal is it takes us towards a state of meditation. So the idea is that if you do meditation, you regularly practice meditation, there's a few challenges to regular practice of meditation. And being sick makes it much more difficult. Because if you're sick, meditation is already difficult. But if your health isn't good, then it becomes practically impossible. So if you're really serious about devoting your life to meditation, then taking care of your health makes a lot of sense, because otherwise your practice will become disrupted again and again. So yoga is then the physical discipline. And as I said, the higher stages of yoga are much more to do with different states of meditation. But then there's also a sister science, which is the science of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is then now going into the details of health. But it is a little different than modern medicine. So modern medicine is very powerful, guaranteed. No one can deny. Amazing things what they can do. I had a friend of mine recently got a lumbar punch, and which is extreme. When I heard it, I was like, God, I hope I would never have to get a lumbar punch. But it's amazing that they can do it, and then they can test that fluid and do all kinds of crazy stuff from it, and they can, put you through big tubes and like scan your brain and see where your bones are broken. And it's impressive, modern medicine. But also comes with huge side effects, isn't it? Modern medicine, either whether it's surgical or medical medicine that we can take, it's because it's very powerful. It also has powerful side effects. I had a friend of mine whose mother was on some kind of experimental blood pressure medication, and then she went blind. No, totally blind, and she didn't recover. Permanently blind, and it was 1 out of a 10 million chance or something, but it was on the label. It did say that. So, you can't sue anyone because you signed the thing. Oh, it's experimental. And they say it's like nothing will, it's like, very rare that anything will go happen. But sometimes you're that person who wins the lottery of the medical side effects. So, very powerful meditation. And then we look, for example, at Ayurveda, we can use a lot of herbal medication. Now, herbs can also be very powerful. But it would be very difficult to find a herb that has a side effect that it can make you go blind. So we see that then in the previous era, pre-modern medicine, like Ayurveda, it can maybe not do radiation or chemo or all kinds of crazy medicine, but there's a different kind of emphasis and it has different power. And the power is very much based on the principle of prevention. And instead of necessarily treating very heavy diseases with all kinds of intense therapies, the idea is that you build up your immune system to become as powerful as possible. And then that will protect you from whatever happens. So a much more what we call a modality focused on cultivating health and stopping disease before it even occurs. Instead of, in the modern medicine, because now if you go to a doctor today, you might go and then the doctor will say, well, you can go in and say, what's the first question they ask? Okay, so what's wrong with you? Why are you here? And if you say, no, I don't really have anything wrong with me, but I would like to become more healthy. That's not really what you go to a doctor for, isn't it? You go to a doctor when there's something wrong. Okay, I have a pain in my stomach or I broke my leg, and then, okay, we can fix that problem. But Ayurveda is more about making you more healthy. So even if there's nothing wrong with you, there's a lot you can do to build up your physical health and also your subtle health. So we'll see a little bit. Now, we're going to do a little bit about Ayurveda, just an overview for those of you who are interested. There's tons of resources on there. It's not so complicated to read up about it, and it's very worthwhile. But then we're going to take a look, as I said, we want to bring in the spiritual, and we're going to see how the Ayurvedic view of looking at disease and health, how that can also very much be used to understand spirituality. And spirituality is also a kind of healing that has to take place. And it is not, it's not just in the Vedic tradition. We see that Jesus, in many different traditions, there's always this connection between spiritual figures and the idea that they're oftentimes seen as healers, great spiritual healers. So Jesus himself was a practically healed people as well, but he was also then known sometimes as the great doctor, and ultimately not just healing the body, but also healing the soul, healing something that is wrong with us, not just on the physical level, but something deep in terms of our spiritual life and the soul itself, which can sometimes needs to be healed. The Buddha was also known as the great physician, one of his names, seen to be specifically saying that he will treat the disease of ignorance. And he can, when you become enlightened, in one sense, it's like becoming healed. Just like if you're bedridden and you're super sick, and then one day you feel better and you can stand up. It's exactly like enlightenment. You can throw off the shackles of disease, and so enlightenment is in one sense nothing more than becoming healthy again, just becoming back to a healthy platform where you're not covered by ignorance and by all the things that we'll see that can cover the soul. Now, theories of disease is very powerful, and if we look at throughout history, we see how a proper understanding of disease is very important, because if you misunderstand how disease works, your therapy also will not work. We see here, for example, a picture of a plague doctor from the Middle Ages in Europe. So have you ever seen this? Ever seen that? What do they call it? That beak mask. Ever seen that? I think they use it probably now in horror movies quite a lot. It looks very scary. But you know where it comes from is that the idea is that they thought the Black Plague, which killed about a quarter of the world population, they thought it was due to bad air. Bad air, rotting material, bad smells that then travel through a city and it makes people sick. They didn't think it was because of the sewage and the fact that they didn't, wash their hands and clean after they cook. So they didn't understand that germs, that the cause of disease was actually something microscopic. It wasn't bad air. It was a little different. The germ theory only came much later. That's allowed people to properly understand how disease spreads. So they thought it was bad air, and what they would do is that beak. They would actually the plague doctors who would be going around and sometimes they would collect the bodies or try to see who they can treat. They actually put this big beak, and in the front of the beak they would stuff it with lavender and all kinds of herbs, because the idea is that you create now very fresh air, so that then that protects you from catching the plague. So we see that how your understanding of disease and how it works, it will have a big impact on whether your therapy is going to be successful or not. And we know now that the Black Plague, the plague was a result of bad sanitation, bad hygiene. Just if you never washed, they had this thing in the Middle Ages. They call it the eternal soup. Uh, they would just make soup. They would just boil soup, and then they would never like wash the pot and clean it. They would just keep adding vegetables and water. So you just keep boiling, and every day you just add some more water and you add some more vegetables, and the thing just keeps boiling the whole time, which is a very dangerous thing to do. Um, so we see that good hygiene, we understand now, is that the whole Black Plague could have been prevented by just basic sanitation and hygiene, and now cities have obviously evolved in that way. So we see that understanding gives you a big advantage in therapy that can actually work. And if you have a misunderstanding of what disease is and how it works, then your treatment will also most likely not work. So as yes.
I saw most people wearing something like that 2-3 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. The masks, yeah. yeah, for the mask. And now again, people have questioned how effective that even really was, you know. So again, so a lot of especially when there's mass, this like when people go crazy, then people can do all kinds of weird things for health. Um, and I think we're also seeing on the end of this month, we'll see also some people walking around like that, probably for Halloween. So Ayurveda then is as I said, so Ayurveda has two things: a huge component on hygiene, pretty impressive. Like in Ayurveda, if you ever look at, if you ever go to, if you ever have the opportunity to go to India, you'll see it's like, even though now India unfortunately got really hit because India, and even in the 50s or in the 60s, India was not industrialized. The vast majority of people lived a great, there was no plastic, there was no industry, it was just farms. And then within like 20 years, few years, they just totally industrialized, completely industrialized. So what took Europe like 2, 3, 400 years to go through the growing pains of industrialization and having to deal with sewage and cities and having to deal with trash and all that kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, they had to squeeze it in like a very short period. So if you go to India, sometimes it feels like a little dirty. It's like this, many times the city is a lot of trash around, whatever. But actually, if you go to the more rural kind of areas, you'll often see that there's a huge emphasis on hygiene. Like people bath twice a day. It's like just such a big part of the culture, like washing your hands. And so hygiene is very interesting. It's a big part of Ayurveda. But then also, as I said, they use a lot of herbal medicine. And the idea is that it's all these things that support making us more healthy. So a lot of different herbs that will then support you in different functions: your digestive function, your immune function, your sleep, your nervous system. All these things can be enhanced and supported by herbal medicine. And even a lot of a lot of the medicines that we have today are just isolated compounds that they take from natural herbs. They can sometimes do it synthetic, but a lot of times it's like something, and then they put it in the lab and they see what the hell is this thing. Then they take it out and they patent it, and then they become that and they magnify it. So a lot of our medicine ultimately still has herbal origins. Now, in Ayurveda, as I said, the goal is not just treating disease, but in making us healthy as possible. Now, I want to look at one thing from the Ayurveda, and this is the disease process. Because as we said, we're looking tonight specifically at how disease works, and then we're going to take that and try to understand spiritual life through that lens. So in Ayurveda, we see here the main idea with Ayurveda is there are three different, one could say, three different energies in the body. There's Vata, which is the air, so all the movement in the body, the air. There's Pitta, which is fire. So, and then Kapha, which is the water. Now, again, it's a little difficult for us because we don't always think in an elemental way, but if you start looking at the functions of the body, it makes a lot of sense. So, fire. Where is there fire in the body? What do you think if you would say fire? In the belly, 100%. It is 100% a fire. It's like you put stuff in there and it burns it. It burns it up, and what do you get? You get heat and you get light. Just like if you burn a fire, those are two things you get. So the belly, so we see that is 100% the element of fire is very active within the body. Yeah? And you can see that even if you get angry, what happens? Anger is very hot, and you can even see how your face can flush. You can see the heat coming out. Someone gets very angry, you can see the heat just rise in the body. So these elements, they function in there. So air, we have naturally also a lot of air in the body, and air has a lot to do with the movement. So it has a lot to do with your nervous system. So as the just like now as we're speaking, the air is the medium through which sound travels. Oh, so much waves. Air is the medium that carries a message from one person to another. So similarly, in your body, wherever there is any movement, and the main movement being your nervous system that travels, that is basically communicating. Your whole body is communicating by these little highways, the nerves that connect every single part of your body in terms of getting information and also doing things. That movement is all regulated by, it's related to the vata, or the air constitution. And then kapha is the structure of the body. So we see the bones, the meat, the things that give the body weight. And these three things are the main force. These are the three main forces in the body. And then every individual person, every one of us, we will have one of these things will predominate. We will have a predominating type. You get some people that are very fiery. So if you're very fiery, if you have a lot of fire in your constitution, then you will tend to get diseases that are a result of too much fire in the constitution. So just like you can see, not everybody is prone to the same weaknesses. Some people, if you have a lot of fire, it means that you could get indigestion, acidity, acid reflux, and later on it will relate to this other, as we'll see later, as the fire, if it gets worse and worse and worse, you're going to get worse and worse manifestations of diseases that's due to that elemental disbalance in the body. If you have vata diseases, for example, if you have disease of air, then you can see a lot of anxiety, too much anxiety, nervous tension. It's amazing how you have some people, they can, especially if you're bigger and stronger, you can take so much pressure. But then nervous vata kind of people are generally thinner, like myself. I'm very vata. So for me, like if I'm under too much stress, I can't sleep. I'm like just lying there the whole time. My nervous system gets so overstimulated, And other people, I have another friend who's like a totally different body. The guy's like a tank, He's like can take so much pressure. If he sleeps, no problem. Yeah, exactly. You have certain people, their nervous system is completely different. But for him, he has to be careful because he can pick up weight like anything, because he has this big, strong body. So now it means, okay, you have the benefit that your nervous system is very strong, but now you have certain other weaknesses. So the kapha kind of body can easily accumulate water, can accumulate weight, and that's also where you can get things like growths. Like sometimes you can get the result of things that grow too much. So like things that grow in your intestines, like polyps, all these kind of things, it's a result of too much kapha, too much water or earth in the body. So again, this is not supposed to be an introduction to Ayurveda. It's a general sketch. This is just giving you some interesting ideas. You can read much more about it. And a big part of Ayurvedic medicine is in first determining what is your predominating type, and then building a lifestyle surrounding that. Like if, for example, you are a vata kind of person, then you need to be very careful. You have to be much more regular. You have to be much more careful with your nervous system. And then there's also a certain kind of diet, certain foods that's going to be better for you. And if you're a kapha kind of person, again, very different. Kapha people, you have to have a lot more exertion. You have to be much more careful about sleeping too much. You have to be much more careful about eating much lighter and not so heavy. And if you're a pitta person, then you have to be much careful to keep cool. You have to stay away from certain heating foods. You have to be very careful of exercising during the hottest part of the day. So the point is that what is healthy will differ a lot for different people. And that's why it's interesting, because sometimes you read these books and someone will come and they say, this is the magic diet. This diet, like, it will work for everyone. And if you take, it will solve all of humanity's problems if everybody follows this diet. And for some people it works, but for other people it doesn't, because we actually have completely different bodies. When I was in college, I got one of those books. They caught me. I got convinced that the solution to all of my health problems is if I just eat fruit. Just nothing else. I just ate fruit. So I tried it for like 2-3 months. I was just eating fruit, nothing cooked, 100% raw fruit. And it was horrendous, because it's like, for me, it's the worst thing, because I already struggle to sleep, So now I'm like wired like anything. I'm just running on fructose. And I lost so much weight because it was the worst diet for me. But then for someone else, I have another friend of mine. That same friend is like a tank. He sometimes does this thing where he goes to India every year, and he's a musician, so he's part of these heavy tours where they do these long tours. And then sometimes while they're touring, he would just for a whole month just drink coconut water. Just it, just coconut water. That's it. And sometimes a little fruit. And it's like he becomes like he has like superpowers. He doesn't have to sleep. He's super healthy. He can just work every day. If I had to do that, I would die. Exactly. No, 'cause he just feels great because his body is completely different. So the point is that there is no one ideal diet, there's no one ideal lifestyle. So whenever a book comes along that tries to tell you that this is the thing that will work for everyone, I guarantee you it's nonsense because it doesn't work like that. There's different, we all have different kind of elemental constitutions, and you have to first understand what will work for me, and then you build a lifestyle around that. And it's very powerful because now you can actually build something that works for you and not trying to do something that might work for someone else. And that's usually what happens. There's some person who does something and it works amazing for him, and then he decides to write a book about it and tell everyone else they should do the same thing. And it just doesn't work like that. It's like, yeah, it worked for you, but it's not going to work for everyone else. So I really loved Ayurveda because I was trying to look for that ideal thing, and then I found out there is no ideal. I have to, but this gives you the knowledge to see what will work, and then what are the principles that will allow you to understand how it works. So um, now Ayurveda has a very specific idea about how disease then ultimately develops. Um, like in modern medicine, we think that there's these tons of different diseases that you can get, and then there's specific treatments. So that's why they call it allopathy. So allopathy means focused on disease, it's disease focused. In Ayurveda, there's tons of different diseases, but they're all ultimately resulting from very simple elemental issues, very basic issues that compound over time and build up. And what happens is that the roots of disease we see here at the bottom are these three humors that will become unbalanced. So either too much air, too much fire, too much water. That is a result of a lifestyle that's not in harmony with your specific body type. So if you're someone that already has an airy kind of constitution, so you're skinny, your nervous system tends to be tense, and now you live a lifestyle where you're moving around the whole time, you don't eat enough, you don't sleep enough, take a lot of pressure. What happens is that vata, that air, it builds up. It accumulates, it builds up in the body. And the same thing for each of these three things. And what they then do is they build up. The first thing they will do is they will compromise your digestive system. So each of these three things, the root of disease is sitting right in your digestive system. If you eat and you don't properly absorb what you eat, that turns into poison, 100%. So, and you can imagine, you can see if you take food and you keep it out for 1 or 2 days, it starts to stink because that's what, even if you cook it, it starts to go bad. So if you eat something and it doesn't digest, it doesn't get burnt up by the body, what do you think happens to it? You have about, I don't know how many feet, like 12 meters of intestinal tract, of like 12 tons of it, like it's all layered up, squeezed into a very tight area. So when you eat something and it doesn't get digested, it sits in there and starts to rot, ferment, and that is the origin of disease. And then if that happens now, obviously over a long period of time, what happens is then that poison will start to spread into different parts of the body, and it will hit different people. It hits us in different places. We all have different weaknesses, different weak spots in the body where that excess poison, your body will try to get rid of it, and it will build up. Some people it hits you in the skin, some people it hits you in your organs. It can hit you in all kinds of different places. But that is the root cause of all diseases, is imbalanced elements in the body that then disrupt the natural functioning of specifically the digestive system. And then that poison gets into the blood, and through the blood, it will then travel to different parts of the body, and then it can build up and it causes imbalances. So the first step we see is accumulation. So it means because of bad lifestyle, you start to build up either too much air, too much fire, too much water. It gets aggravated, and then it overflows, it spreads through the blood, it relocates in different areas, and then it will manifest as a specific disease. And and then again, Ayurveda also has its specific idea of calling different disease different names. And it's interesting because sometimes you can have the same disease, but it can be caused by different, there's different humors that can cause it. Can need it. So, for example, if you have, let's think about a good example here. If you have say you have a skin disease, so that can be the result of either too much fire or too much water or too much air. And the treatment will look a little different for each. So even though the disease looks very similar, but the origin of it can be different. Because again, it comes back to the fact that each of us, we have an individual body type and we will respond differently to different treatment. Okay, so a little bit of the disease process and in Ayurveda. Let's stop here for a minute because this was as much Ayurveda that I wanted to cover before we get into the application of Ayurveda to spiritual life. So let's see, any questions or anything that's been said? I mean, I said a lot of stuff about Ayurveda, all kinds of things. Let's see if there are any questions or something that has come up. Yes.
I'm curious, as opposed to in more Western traditions, they usually have four humor
Yeah.
system. Uh, and I think I like this one more just because I noticed there's more of a like a trinity or a tripartite system among all world religions.
Yeah.
So I just intuition wise, I feel like this is probably closer. I feel like maybe the earth part is kind of not really needed, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good point. So if you, because we agree the Ayurveda says still there's five main elements, the same as the five classical elements in Western tradition. But then the humors there, like you said, it's either water, fire, or earth, and it's again very similar to Chinese medicine. So, but again, with traditional Western, the ancient Western medicine was the four humors of what's it, Galen, I think, and but yeah, the threes again. When you really get into it and you start applying these things, it's amazing how useful it is and how it all fits together.
And all five
Yes.
fit in there. Cool.
All five fit in there, yeah.
Kapha is water and earth, Pitta is fire and air, and Vata is air and ether.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it's considered to be there's one element, which is the carrier, and there's the other element, which is the force. So that's how the five elements combine together, even though you get three humors. So.
Masculine and feminine aspect. Like
Yeah,
here, force
exactly. The
power.
carrier and the force, 100%. Yeah. And then it comes up with these three. Yes, Jimin.
Yeah, I grew up with the Chinese medicine. It's strikingly similar. It's
Yeah.
almost identical. The
Yeah.
basic concept, and even say like every food and every medicine has its nature that would counteract or promote one of the three humors.
Yeah.
So it's way more than just the chemistry, like the chemical element,
Mm-hmm.
like what the Western medicine is based on.
Yeah.
For example, like let's say like turmeric, and the Western medicine would just extract curcumin.
Yeah.
But that is a dead material element.
Yeah.
The thing is the spice itself has contained a certain prana
Yeah.
as heating, but it's being stripped out by Western medicine, and that's why most of the time it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is almost the same.
Yeah, it's the same. Like it's interesting because in India, for example, you get sugar cane. So they take the whole sugar cane, and you can take that sugar cane and they can squeeze it. It's quite cool. Like you next to the road, they'll have like just fresh sugar cane. They have a little press and they squeeze the juice straight out of it. It's amazing. It tastes like the best soda ever. But you know what's interesting is that sugar cane juice like that is very good for diabetes.
Yes.
Which is ironic because the point is that if you take sugar and you extract it, you basically separate it from everything else. You take just that sucrose, you just take that one element out of it, it becomes very dangerous because now it's totally unbalanced. But if you take the whole thing just straight, the whole juice with everything mixed in there, and you don't extract one thing, then it's healthy. It's interesting that sugarcane juice is good for diabetes. You would think it's probably the worst thing for a diabetic to drink, but no. When you take the whole product and you don't isolate it and pull various things out, you just take it as it's made in nature, it has a totally different effect on the body. So same thing like you're saying. There's a big difference with taking curcumin or taking fresh turmeric juice that you squeeze out. It's a whole package. There's a lot of different things in there. Like I said, there's also life in there. There's a certain kind of energy in there that's much more than just the compounds of it. Yeah.
We
Yes.
say with the life or the prana, it's like you have some really nice fresh fruit. You bite it and you feel energy, and it's like a second has passed. You haven't really digested anything
Yeah.
physically yet, but there's something else that's happening on a very more subtle level.
Yeah.
It's giving you that energy.
100%. Yeah. So it's that subtle level that's ultimately that is very much lacking, and the whole modern viewpoint of disease is that it doesn't have a proper understanding of the subtle dimension of human health and human experience. Yes, sir.
Sugarcane juice, no extract.
Yeah.
In addition to that, they add ginger as well as lemon.
Yes. Yeah.
They mix it and
Yeah. Yeah. So when they squeeze it, they add fresh ginger and fresh lemon as well, which makes it taste very good, and which also adds a lot to the health benefits of it. Yeah. So anyone else? Any other questions? Just anything? Unfortunately, we have a canned version. No, you can, yeah. Because what's the problem with sugarcane juice? Is it? No. It ferments within like a few hours. So that's why. So it's like, oh, now we can package and sell it. They can, but then they have to add preservatives, and then it becomes poisonous again. So what to do? It's the problem with the modern world.
Sugarcane from the festival last Wednesday.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You can eat and just chew it straight up.
It's
It's the best. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions on anything we've said so far on Ayurveda and stuff? So again, this Ayurveda thing is actually very big. You know, you can delve a lot into it. So it was not, if you don't understand a lot of stuff, that's fine. You can go read up a little about it. And it is very interesting to get into it, specifically for those of us who are already into practicing yoga. The two things complement one another immensely. Okay, but now I want to speak about how this vision, as we saw a little bit, how it's very different. It's a very different way of looking at the human, looking at health, and how if we take this and we apply it to the therapy, and then specifically then at spiritual life. So in Ayurveda, there's two kinds of therapies. There's tons of different things you can do, but all therapies mean a therapy means something you do to improve your health or to address a problem that you have. Even though there's tons of different things, so many massages, so many herbs, so many concoctions, so many styles of these kind of things and that kind of stuff, tons of different things, but they're all in only two categories. There's only two different types of therapies. The one therapy is reductive, which is meant to cut, to reduce, to make less, to clean, to purify. And that therapy is usually unpleasant. The medicine is usually bitter. It can be painful, but it's good for you. And the other one is to rejuvenate. There are therapies that are rejuvenating. So this means to nourish you, to heal you. This is like eating food that is very nutritious, or like having a nice oil massage that just like relaxes you and it stimulates you. That's also good. Health is not just about the bitter. It's not only that the bitter, painful things are going to make you healthy. No, it has to be balanced. You have to sometimes reduce, to cut, and sometimes you have to. We gotta. Yes, what's happening there? Patel brothers, like you said. Yes, yeah. So she's speaking about that thing on the left. That is called bitter melon. It's called Karela, which is, as the name said, is very bitter. Indian gourd, yeah, but it's very good for you. Yeah, very, very good for you. Very bitter, but it cleans the liver, purifies the blood, but it's not tasty. Yeah, it's not tasty, exactly. And on the other side, we see some kind of a fat, juicy nut butter, which is very tasty, but it's also good for you. It's not that the things that are tasty are bad for you and the things that are bitter are good for you. No, You need both of these things sometimes in life. And in terms of building your health, Ayurveda has these things that, for example, something like fasting is sometimes good for you, but sometimes you shouldn't be fasting. Sometimes you should be eating. Sometimes you have to sleep a lot and you have to eat a lot. That's what's going to make you healthy, not that you fast and you starve yourself. So therapies can be either reducing or rejuvenating. And in spiritual life, exactly the same thing applies. So when we start to think about our spiritual life, we have to see that if you're really serious about your own spiritual progress, both of these two things will have to be there. Now, Ayurveda speaks about now the Vedic tradition. So we're leaving Ayurveda here for a little bit. We're going to the Bhagavatam, which again is a Vedic text, but now a text specifically dealing with spiritual life, so dealing with the reality of the soul. And it says here, just as an improperly treated disease recurs and gives repeated distress to the patient, the mind that is not completely purified of its perverted tendencies will remain attached to material things and repeatedly torment the imperfect yogi. So they speak about the disease of the heart, where there's these certain things in your heart, and heart means your inner world, the world of your desires, the world of what's happening inside of you, the real, the inner experience. There are certain things there, certain disease can be there as well. Huh? Just like there can be disease in the body, there can be disease in the mind and disease in the heart. And what are those diseases? The first one we speak about kama or lust means, and lust means desire for something that will not bring you happiness. Huh? If you think about an addiction, an addiction is destroying you. You can't stop it. So that's the kind of desire we're speaking of here. Not all desire, but specifically a desire for something that is bad for you, but you can't stop doing it. Huh? That is very dangerous, and that's something we all struggle with. Then anger. Anger, very dangerous. Again, anger has its application, but anger, when oftentimes can cause huge havoc. People have done crazy things when they become angry. It makes your intelligence go shut, and you can say things you wish you never said. And how many relationships have been ruined by people saying things when they're angry, and then you can't take it back. You can't afterwards say, "Oh, I didn't mean it." No, the anger is very dangerous. Then greed. Greed means desiring more than what we need. And it's amazing how you can have people, so many ways, greed makes us go crazy. You see, the classic example of that is whenever there's a gold rush in the earlier centuries when they discovered gold. And it was just crazy what people would do to one another. They would kill one another and like cheat one another just because they want more and more and more. So greed, again, a disease of the heart. Then illusion. Illusion means where you are not seeing the truth. And it's amazing how oftentimes we can lie to ourselves, deceive ourselves. Self-deception is a big thing. Self-deception causes a lot of havoc on so many different areas. If you look at, it's interesting when you look at big corporate scandals, like the famous one, say Enron, the whole collapse of Enron. But it's like there's a lot of people who just they were deceiving themselves about what's really happening and what is the case. So, and what to speak about in individual people's lives, how a lot of illusion plagues us, meaning that there are certain things that we think in our head is true, but it is not true. It's not real. You've made it up, and it can cause a lot of problems. And then madness is when we, as we said, mada means where we can go into a stage where we just lose all conception of what to do and what not to do. And madness is obviously, and you can see how it's building up. It starts with desire, it turns into anger, then it can turns into greed, and it can turn into illusion, and then it can turn into madness, and then the worst manifestation of disease is envy. And envy here specifically means, matsarya means that how we can obtain happiness by the suffering of others. Huh? And it's crazy because it's the total opposite of what the soul's real nature is. The soul's actual nature is to find happiness in the pleasure of others. That's like a very natural thing. We all love it. We all love it when we see people do good things, especially when we see people do good things for free. Tons of YouTube. You can go on YouTube, you can Google people doing good things, and then there's millions of videos of people who step in to help a stranger, or some guy who dives into to save a little drowning dog, or whatever it is. We love that. It appeals to us. It's amazing when people help one another. But envy it's totally the opposite. And we sometimes think of envy, we are oftentimes we can be naive in how deep envy can go and what people can do to harm one another, even if it has no benefit for themselves, just because they want to see someone else suffer. So envy is then considered to be the most acute manifestation of this disease of the heart, a very dangerous thing. So, in Ayurveda, then, like to see. Okay, I'm going to skip these verses. Okay, so as I said, these things they develop on one another. The one turns into the other. It's more acute versions of the same thing. Just like as we saw in Ayurveda, how you have disease starts very simple with not being able to digest something, and then it builds up, and then it spreads into the blood, and then it comes out in different parts of your body. But it's all coming down to the same thing, which is the poison that is generated when we do not digest food properly. And as we said in Ayurveda, there's also these two kinds of therapies, and in spiritual life, the same principle is there. In any genuine spiritual practice, there are going to be certain parts of that spiritual path that will be focusing on reducing. We see in spiritual life sometimes fasting. Many traditions have some form of fasting in there. Fasting is not fun. Fasting is not a pleasurable experience, but it can be very good for you. To for one day or for a half a day to pull back and to cut that tendency we have to always be eating mindlessly and just always thinking about food. For one day, if you just say no, it's very bitter in the beginning, but if you practice it, it can be an amazing experience. So all kinds of things that are based on renunciation, simplifying our life, cutting things that shouldn't be there, giving up bad habits, overcoming addictions. These are all things that are important in the spiritual path. It's not necessarily pleasurable, it can be very painful, but it can be very good for you. And it's definitely a very important part of spiritual life. And as I said, you can look at all different kinds of spiritual traditions in the world. They will all have some form of these things that are a little bitter, the bitter medicine that is part of spiritual life. The austerity, for example, like in our tradition here in the temple, they wake up. If you stay in the temple, if you live in the temple, you have to wake up every morning at 4 a.m. And it is sometimes very painful to wake up at 4 a.m. It's not fun at all. And they have that's fine. They have a big gong. So if you sleep up, you can't hear, but it's right up in the fourth floor. So if you sleep at 4 a.m., someone has a job, he has a gong and he bangs the gong. Everybody has to wake up because it's a temple. You have to wake up very early because they are monks and it's monastic life. And I can tell you sometimes you really don't want to wake up at 4, but you do it. It's painful, but you do it. But the benefit of it is that your meditation practice is unparalleled. If you do your meditation at 5 a.m. in the morning, it's very different than doing it at 7 or 9. If you do it while the whole world is sleeping. So these austerities, renunciation, it's an important part of spiritual life. And not that we all necessarily have to wake up at 4. When I was living in the temple, I woke up at 4 every day. Now, as I started working, I don't know when's the last time I woke up at 4, to tell you the truth. I'm living outside the temple now, and life looks a little different when you take up different responsibilities. But still, in our own way, we have to be careful. We have to austerities are helpful for us, and it helps us to clean ourselves. It helps us to clean off bad habits that we can accumulate over life. And it's very easy to pick up bad habits. We pick them up, just they sneak into your life, isn't it? It's like sitting up straight. How easy it is. Most of us sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day. It's very difficult to not slouch when you're on the computer. Every day you have to be careful. You have to make a little note on your computer that says, don't slouch, sit up straight. Because bad habits, they creep in very easily. Yeah? And same thing with something like eating or scrolling, isn't it? The phone is the worst. And then you look at your, every Sunday you get your little report that says what's your screen time for the week, and then you're like, what? 3 hours a day? Where do I find 3 hours a day to sit on my phone? So it happens to you as well, huh? Yeah, it's brutal. Exactly, time consuming, and it's something that yeah, we always have to cut it. Yeah? You have to always be on track, and then you have to, every now and again you have to say, okay, for this month I'm not gonna read the news, or exactly, I'm gonna stay off social. And then you have people, and then you see they make that post, they say, I'm not going to be using Facebook for the next month, and then like a week later you see them posting again. Exactly. So it's very difficult. So you have to, but again, it's part of life. We have to cut, perform some austerity. Exactly. Now, that's only one part of spiritual life. The other part of spiritual life is, as we said, just like in Ayurveda, you sometimes have to eat nourishing food, have nourishing experiences. And this is the thing that's oftentimes missing in our spiritual practice, is what is your spiritual nourishment? Spiritual life is not just about, being focused and disciplined and waking up early. It's also about spiritual nourishment, doing things that nourish your spiritual desires. So, for example, coming together as a group like this and having friends and doing something spiritual, it nourishes us. It's not austere. It's an experience where we connect with other people. You feel afterwards, you walk out, your heart feels fuller. So, same thing when we do kirtan or chanting. It's also these are the elements of life that nourish and rejuvenate us. So we have to also have a program in our life where we make sure we stay spiritually nourished. Because if you're not going to eat, you're going to become weak. And we see here another verse from the Bhagavatam says that the sacred sound of the Lord's name, this mantra that we chanted, and the teachings are like life-giving nectar. When drunk through the ears, they cure the polluted desires of life, characterized by attachment to the mundane, and thus lift the soul to the spiritual world. So the idea is that these practices that we have in spiritual life, it also is nourishing, and it's like medicine that heals us. So this chanting that we do, for example, if you make that a part of your practice every day, it gives us actually a lot of nourishment. It fills up the heart, it nourishes the soul. And that strength that you get from either reading scripture or doing your meditation, that strength is what gives you the power to overcome so many obstacles in life. So something to think about in your life, and you can think about in your own spiritual practice. How are you incorporating these two things in your life? Do you have some discipline and some austerity in your life, which is good to keep you on track? But do you also have enough nourishment in your life? Because we oftentimes neglect it, 100%. Especially because we're so busy, we sometimes think that, oh, I don't have time, to nourish myself. I don't have time to. I don't have time to just sit with some people and do some meditation together. It's because it's not really that important, but it is very, very important, and we have to give it. We have to see that in your life. If you're not going to nourish yourself and with spirituality, then you will become hungry. Your soul will become hungry, and when we are hungry, we can get into trouble. So a lot of addictions and stuff we can pick up. They did an interesting study with people who came back from Vietnam. So in Vietnam, a lot of drugs. It's very cheap, hard drugs. So what happened is that a lot of people used heroin when they were in Vietnam because it was just everywhere. It was such a crazy time. But when they came back, some of them basically came back as junkies, addicts, and they came back and they just continued using heroin, and it's a big problem. Other people, they came back and they just never did it again. Which is very interesting because the idea is there that heroin is like just chemically addictive. And there's nothing you can do. If you take it, it's like you can't help yourself. But when they looked at the people, they saw that the people who came back, and they came back into like a healthy situation, a healthy family situation with good support, they had good friends. These people could leave whatever happened there, they could leave it behind and just not, they were actually protected from getting addicted. Whereas the people who came back with no nourishment, no support, no friends, no family, just alone, these are the people that were much more likely to keep a bad addiction going. So by filling up our life with positive things, it really protects us. So just like we saw in Ayurveda, the focus is not just on treating disease, but the focus is on really cultivating health through really building up the positive in life. And that's really what the path of bhakti is also about. So by taking these positive things like chanting and reading scripture, associating with other spiritual people, singing together, even though these things they look nice and sometimes we should not underestimate the power of these positive things and what they can really do for us over time. So that's some thoughts that I had on spiritual life. We looked a little at Ayurveda. We looked at how the therapies is there, and then we applied it to a spiritual context. And we have a few minutes to have some questions or some reflections or anything that was said um, tonight. Yes, Jimin.
Yeah. So I think the idea of not having the time for spiritual practice is a big illusion, because if we don't have satisfaction in the heart, we end up having to spend a lot of time
And other stuff.
others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I used to get into, like, drinking wine,
Yeah.
and that's because I wasn't chanting Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting the fulfillment inside, and then I need something quick,
Yeah.
like quick fix. So I ended up like, I mean, that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And sleep a lot, and wasting a lot of time. But when I resumed my chanting again, I just didn't feel like I needed any, and it's complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an illusion of Maya that trap us entangle us in the material world,
Yeah.
to prevent us to experience something beyond the material and eventually get out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and for many of us, the modern thing is the phone. I tell you, the online world, if you're not going to be nourished with actual real community and people, your energy will just it's going to be sucked up by the virtual reality, and that's just how it is. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, like you said, a portal. Yes, sir.
As far as the like nourishment goes and everything, I've noticed like as I've gone deeper into meditation and after I had a like spiritual awakening
Yeah.
thing, my body does not process meat anymore.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Hates it when I eat meat. It
Yeah.
just sits in my gut.
Yeah.
And it's like, how'd you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like it like you said, it doesn't break it down. It just sits there.
Yeah.
And my body hates it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, and we'll see that as we cultivate spiritual life a lot, we'll see a lot of things. Sort of, there's a lot of things. Sometimes it can even be people. Like I had some friends who were very good friends with me, and then I really got into spiritual life. And then at some point, those people, I just couldn't connect with them at all. I just couldn't like digest them anymore because they were just so like, for lack of a better word, they were evil. I had some friends who were like really evil people. Not evil that they were like serial killers, but they were like really not at all concerned about avoiding envy or greed. They went for it. And as I cultivated my spiritual life, at some point, these people, they just can't fit with your life. So you'll see that, as you said, when you become nourished, certain things will just fall away. Yeah, they just can't be part of that anymore. Yeah, yeah. And that's really the focus. So but in the absence of that, it's very difficult to give things up. Like when I was, with certain friends, those same friends before I was spiritual, that was like they were like the most important thing in my life, because I was in a bad place, and at least I had them. But then at some point, they just naturally fell away, and now it's good because you know it's interesting when you see what happens to people 15, 20 years later. You see when people make certain life choices, and you see where it takes them. And I'm glad that I took the choices I had. Anyone else? Any other comments or? Yes, sir.
So, you mentioned that addictions are very easy catchable, kind
Yeah.
of. And you say like we need to like feed our soul.
Yeah.
So I know that we probably don't have much time, but
Mm.
could you please go like a little deeper with what kind of things besides of like chanting or like things that are positive for us
Mm.
to feed our soul and avoid or like get rid of
Yeah.
addiction.
Very good question. So there is in spiritual in the path of bhakti, there's many different things we could do, but there's 5 things that are considered the most important. These are the most important things that nourish the soul directly. The first one is, as we said, is chanting mantra, chanting the holy name of God. Very powerful. Number 2 is reading spiritual literature. We read so many different things every day, but if you read spiritual literature, it has a very different effect. So spiritual literature, like the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, these things, they nourish because they speak about things that you will never see anywhere else. No one speaks about these things. You're not going to see it on the news. You're not going to see it on, you're not going to go to university and study stuff. It's like we're speaking about really reading genuine spiritual literature. Number 2 is the power of a temple, like a spiritual place, like here, like where, especially where we have a lot of worship going on, like in the temple. That's a very powerful experience. Like, say, when you come to a place and there's worship in different ways, different traditions do it in different ways, but that is something that also nourishes the soul. Certain spiritual, like, ritual in a healthy community, it really helps us. The Catholics, they go to mass. For us, we do, we worship the deity. So these rituals that are part of spiritual life, they also really nourish us. The fourth thing is the association with spiritual people. So by just being with other spiritual people, it's not just that, oh, I have a nice social time. No, your spirit, your heart, your soul is actually nourished when you're dealing with other people that are also sharing spiritual aspirations. You get so much inspiration from that. You share in that inspiration. So associating with spiritual people is more than just a social thing. It actually nourishes the soul as well, because now you're connecting with people on the spiritual platform, and it gives a lot of strength. And the last thing is pilgrimage, the power of going on a pilgrimage, specifically to holy places. So holy places, and I don't know if you've ever been to, like, in India, for example, we go to a place called Vrindavan, which is just, it's called the city of 1,000 temples. And the whole place for thousands of years is just a place of pilgrimage. And when you go there, it's amazing, because now you go into a place where the whole place is just focused on spiritual life. Like here, to be spiritual, you're swimming against the stream. Yes, it's like it's like to try to the New York City is not designed to wake up at 4 a.m. and do your meditation. That's not what the city is built on. That's not why you come to New York. It's for New York, you come for different reasons. So here, if you want to do that, you have to push and you have to fight against the current. But if you go to a place of pilgrimage, that place carries you. And it's an amazing experience if you've never had it. If you would go to these spiritual places where everybody goes there for a spiritual purpose, it's just amazing. It's like when you go into a river and you can feel, oh God, I can stop fighting. I don't have to fight my environment the whole time. I can just be carried by my environment around me. And it's such an experience of nourishment that's difficult to describe. So these 5 things: the mantra, the scripture, the worship, the ritual, the sangha, the friendship of spiritual people, and then making pilgrimage, going on a pilgrimage. These are considered to be the 5 most powerful things that directly nourish our soul. And as we bring these things and make it part of our life, now again, when it comes to addiction, the fight is still there. It won't just magically go and take it away. But as these things become stronger, we build up the strength to be able to fight the addictions that we have. And yeah, that's the fight of life. So I think that's a good list and a good place for us to end. So we'll end here. I thank you so much for paying attention, and it was very nice to be here with you. And again, if you want afterwards, I I have a lot of resources in Ayurveda and stuff. If anybody wants to read some more, I can send you. You can give me your email address, and I can send you more things than you can read in one lifetime. So that's how it works in the world now. So much information, but so little time. But I have some good stuff that I can send you. Okay, Nityananda, off to the next part.
Once again, everyone can give a nice So we do this every Sunday. This is called the Darshan room. We have a little bit of kirtan. We have different speakers. They, as you see, prepare very nice talks. So if you live here in New York or if you come back, please come again. And we always like to feed you delicious food that has been cooked with love and devotion. That's called prasadam. Right before we have prasadam, we like to get our appetites up. So we're going to have a very short kirtan. So everyone can just please stand up. Take it in. I'm getting too old for this. This will make you younger. Yes. This is the rejuvenate.